Okay, hi everyone. I think we're officially live on Facebook. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in today for another one of our live panels. Today we're dedicating this space to all of our Gen Z, all the young people out there, children, teenagers, and obviously to their parents who are usually worried about them and loving them and trying to do the best for them. So we're here for you. I'd like to make some introductions. I'm Cher, I'm a psychologist and I manage Polaris. I have a wonderful team with me. And today you're going to meet a few of them. There's Gabrielle Bartoli, she's our counselor who specializes in teens. We have Christina, who is our behavior and relational coach. Christina works with a lot of parents and a lot of children to support them in making the changes they would like in their life. And we have Gabriel, our favorite psychiatrist here, who is going to talk to us about perhaps even more of the symptoms that we experience from time to time, and all of his expertise, bringing all his expertise to the table. So good morning, everyone. Please keep your questions coming in. We've already gotten a few questions from people. They will be anonymous. Don't worry, no one will know it's you. You can send messages to our Facebook page, to our email address. We have people monitoring them constantly. And I will also be monitoring as I go along and facilitate this session. So we can start with our first question from our young person. And I think we can kick off with this one. So this person has said to us, I haven't been able to sleep very well lately. I don't know why, but it's like my body just doesn't seem to relax and switch off anymore. I don't know what to do because I'm feeling also very tired during the day and then. Please, can you help me? What can I do about this? So who would like to get started on this?
Maybe me?
Go for it.
Can I start?
Yes,
so hello everyone. This question is very common. I met a few times from parents and also from teens, and I can sympathize very, very much because when I don't sleep, next day I become a hedgehog for sure. 8 hours has to be done sleeping. So this hedgehog mood, if it comes continuously, then it's bad for everyone. I find it with some of my clients, with parents and also with teens, one solution, if I may say solution. Obviously, please keep everybody in mind what is good for one does not mean that it's good for everyone, but I will give you some tips. So from my end, as coach, we always see the practical side. What we find out is that the body has to be tired. We agreed that the body has to be tired. So lots of time we are grabbed with our thoughts and our life, and we just forget to move enough. We think that we are tired, our mind is tired, but physically we are not. So the feedback what I got after we tried out, I'm not talking about exercising as a sportsman, but going for a long walk, discovering whatever you have interest. And it does not mean to be with parents. Yes, there are different regulations, which I lost myself as well now. You can go with 2 or with 4, but I think the latest is with 4. So outside, it can be used for a long walk, if that is to be done. And also you can use it for a good deep chat, or even just talk about nothing, or just laugh or shout out somewhere. It does not mean set before what you are going to do. But from my end, this is what I can add you. From parents and 14 side, this is what they say. It might help.
Thank you, Chris. Fantastic.
Can I add something?
Of course, Gab, yes, go ahead.
I agree a lot with what Christina said. I think what might help as well is to create a night routine. During the day, we're always going from one thing to another, and our brains and our bodies are constantly on the go. So I think we need to create some space before we actually go to bed and try to sleep, to calm our bodies and to calm our minds down. And creating that routine is really helpful. For example, dimming the lights. If you have a lot of lights on, turning off some light, or if you have a dimmer, turning down the switch, putting on some nice relaxing music, putting on some candles maybe. Another thing is the phone or screens. Those with the blue light, it activates our brain and it activates everything, starts going on, all the information that we receive, our brains start going on at 100 miles an hour. So maybe we should dedicate that hour before we sleep to turn off our phones, to, let's say, I don't know, if they sleep at 9 p.m., let's say by 8, you stop using your phones, you stop using any screens, and just create a nice atmosphere, even if it's just in their room, where it's a nice, relaxing atmosphere. Listen to some nice music, maybe read if they like to read. If they don't like to read, maybe paint something or draw or anything that calms your body and your mind down. Because with screens, we're activating everything else, and then once you get to bed, you can't sleep. And one other thing, maybe keeping a journal by your bedside table and letting out everything on paper before you get to sleep, and literally trashing out everything. Yes, and emptying everything, so that you can sleep with an empty mind and an empty body.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah.
From my point of view, I would like to add that it depends. Not every insomnia is the same. So when someone has problems with sleep, it could be a problem with falling into sleep, and it also could be a problem with maintaining the sleep throughout the whole night up until morning. And it could also be a problem with sleep quality, meaning that the person would be able to sleep a normal amount of time, but the sleep would not be as refreshing as it's supposed to be. And Christina and Gabby gave very good advice on how we can help ourselves, prime ourselves into a better mental state to facilitate sleep, and that's very good. From my point of view as a doctor, there are also other conditions which may predispose to difficulty with sleep. It could also be a physical cause, such as, I don't know, an overactive thyroid, deranged blood tests, and so much more, steroids in the blood, and so on. But it could also be something related to a psychiatric condition, a mental health condition, which my colleagues can also divulge more about as well. Anxiety, for example, is quite known to cause what we call initiation insomnia, meaning that the individual would find it difficult to fall into sleep. So that's where the journal may help, the sleep routine may help, what we call sleep hygiene, because the individual would go to sleep, but the mind keeps on racing. Depression, on the other hand, may sometimes lead one to sleep, but at the same time, wake early in the morning. And when someone wakes in the morning in that sort of condition, they will wake up in a very bad mood at around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and then find it difficult to fall asleep again. And obviously then the next day they will feel very unrefreshed, very tired, and even more depressed. So it's a very complex situation, and we need to approach it from a different point of view depending on the presentation.
What should they do, Gabriel, if they think they're struggling with anxiety or sad mood, or what we're talking about here?
I think the best way forward would be to seek help. I don't think that these things should be left to lie, and get worse and worse, because unfortunately sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, anxiety and depression, if treated poorly or not treated at all, will actually stay there or get worse. That being said, if someone feels anxious because he has an interview tomorrow, an exam, and he can't sleep because of that is a normal human reaction. That's expected. But if it's a recurrent thing, it's happening every day, it's affecting the quality of life of the individual, then that is a problem, and I would advise the person to seek professional help.
Okay. One more question, Gabriel, which I've always, been curious about myself. In terms of food intake before bed, does that usually affect sleep? Is there any food that we should avoid, or or have, which may support us to sleep better or not.
Exactly. The best advice is that we should refrain from eating or drinking at least 4 hours before we go to bed. The problem is I don't follow that advice as well. But it helps in so many ways, because obviously when the body is processing, digesting food, then obviously sleep would be impaired, because part of the body would still be working while we're trying to sleep. At the same time, when we eat late, it also predisposes to other conditions such as gastric reflux, heartburn, epigastric discomfort, and so on. And that obviously poses risks. If we were to choose the best type of food to eat at the end of the day, ideally a light meal, something which does not contain spices, which is not too heavy, you know, and obviously we avoid soft drinks, anything which may contain caffeine. And even if we'd like that cup of tea, ideally it's decaffeinated tea, because it does affect the sleep quality.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay.
And one thing I can add to what Gabriel is saying, energy drinks, because I know a lot of young people love energy drinks and they don't know that they contain a lot of caffeine and a lot of sugar. And drinking them is already dangerous, let alone drinking them towards nighttime. It's even worse.
Okay. Gabby's a bit stuck. You're back, Gab.
I was saying that drinking them towards nighttime makes it very difficult to sleep.
Yes, absolutely. And even sugar, we underestimate the effect sugar has on our brain. So thank you. I think we've exhausted that question quite a bit. I myself have struggled with my sleep in the past, and I think these are really good tips. So I have a very sweet question from someone now. This person, I don't know if it's a girl or a guy, is saying, please tell me when this stupid pandemic is going to end. I can't take it anymore. It's a pity we don't have God on the panel today. He might be able to enlighten us.
One thing to help them is to say that we're so fed up ourselves as well.
At least we all share that sentiment. Hey, you're not alone. But yes, it is an uncertain situation, and unfortunately, we're quite accustomed to living a life which is structured, ordered, you know, planned before, even months before. And this pandemic has uprooted all of that and made us all very unstable in our lifestyle and the way we live. I think the best advice from my point of view would be to adapt to the constant change and to take it as a normal part of life and live day by day. That is the best mind frame which we can adopt right now, I believe.
I agree, Gabriel. I think it's not an easy thing to do, but trying to live day by day and sort of saying, okay, what can I control today? How can I make today in itself a beginning and an end, which will be meaningful? And what do I need to cope with today, you know, and trying not to think of tomorrow, next month, I wonder what summer will be like, because I think this creates anxiety, and then obviously all the other symptoms come with it.
I join both of you. I like very much both of your advice. I was going to say to focus on what you can control, because yes, Cher, I think that's very good. What I did with some of the teens was they were telling me that they planned and everything is gone. Whatever was planned now, nothing is going to happen, and so on. But then we find out that, yes, it's true, and then it's not true, because then we can plan something just for today and for tomorrow. And until we know that, okay, the authorities, they said that now we can be 2 of us. Okay, so let's plan something which is adapting to the regulation. So that for sure is going to remain that way. It gives back a certain success as well, because this is what they say, that every fun is taken away, no fun anymore. I agree. However, maybe we can just try to plan a bit differently the fun, with a different mindset. I know not a usual mindset, but maybe, yes, with some girls mostly, there is a success on this.
And I think what helps me also is to remember that this too shall pass. This is not forever. Breathe. There is an end to this. There is an end. Okay. We don't know when it's going to be, but I really enjoy looking at Facebook and seeing other countries who are already living their life fairly back to normal, like Australia, where I have a lot of family. And I look forward to those days. And in the meantime, I think it's important to try and, like, you're saying, all of you, make meaning of the moment and maybe do things that we wouldn't normally do if we weren't in a pandemic, like, doing more time with our hobbies inside the home, decorating our bedroom, revamping our wardrobe. I don't know. I mean, maybe these are all feminine things. What do boys do? Gabriel at home, catch up with their PlayStation and their.
It depends. Some people like gardening, others like computer games, and sport, obviously.
It's true. It's true. But yes, we do acknowledge that it's a difficult time.
I was going to add, in fact, as you're saying, share that even though it's a very difficult time and a lot of horrible things are happening around the world, there are also positive things related to this pandemic. Like, we never had the chance to actually slow down and just explore things that we can do at home, for example, and explore different creative ways how we can communicate online. For example, I never knew what Zoom was. I think many of us never knew what Zoom was. And we've created quizzes, we've created games, we've created games nights through Zoom. So there's also that positive aspect of it. And maybe we got to, even though it's virtually, maybe, for example, let me talk about me. I got to communicate with people I hadn't communicated for quite a long time. And because it's easier to do it through Zoom, I did it more frequently. So there's also that positive side to slowing down and doing things that you don't usually do in your busy life.
It's fantastic. Yes, absolutely. But anyway, I think our overall message was we are sick of it too, guys. And we're all just trying our best to cope with what we have, knowing that it will end one day and we're all in this together, So I'm going to move to another question. This young person is saying, I really just don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. Nothing is motivating me, everything is boring. They're talking also about online school and how difficult they're finding it. And I'm feeling like I've lost interest in everything I used to love before. How are we going to help this young person?
Should I start, or?
Yes, Gabriel, please.
Basically, the symptoms which this person is describing could be indicative of a depressive disorder, depression. It could also be proportional to one's condition at first day. So when we speak about depression, we speak about people who experience low mood, helplessness, hopelessness, lack of motivation, lack of energy, becoming easily fatigued over no particular activity, and a general sense of emptiness as well, and even thoughts about dying and about life. Now, in this instance, the person who submitted this question, basically, they're describing many symptoms which could fall under this term, under depression. It depends then on whether it's been ongoing for a long time or it's just now. Because obviously not everyone who feels low in mood has depression. There are different criteria to assess that. My advice to this person would be to seek professional help as soon as possible, and do also try to vary your day and seek support as much as possible from friends, family, and so on. But I don't know what my colleagues can say about this.
I agree very much. I'm also, though, very aware that I think at the moment everyone's motivation has crashed quite a bit. So I think it's up to the individual to really decide, listen, is this depression or is this a normal reaction at the moment to the situation?
Exactly. The proportionality of the reaction makes it different.
Exactly. And also knowing that it's natural that our motivation decreases when suddenly, you know, everything we loved, like Christina was saying, where's the fun? Where's the fun? It's kind of just really been a bit dampened, quite dampened. And we all know online school is not the same as live school. Online ballet lessons are not the same as studio ballet lessons. We can't play football or playing, you know, all this 2-meter distance and everything. Obviously, everything is dampened. So I think our motivation, certainly my motivation, has decreased a lot. What do you think, guys?
Sorry, I would, in this case, I would definitely involve parents. Because I know for teenagers, parents can be not the most welcome when there is sort of deep talk, and that's okay. But I would involve parents just to watch out, because we are living in a time when I feel it's very hard to decide for a parent, is this a depression or we are just low? Because so now we are all a bit low. So how a parent can decide this? That's why I would very much agree. I am agreeing with Gabriel a lot. I prefer to move safely. And who knows me, they know I always ring the bells, even if I don't need to, but I ring the bells. Because for my point of view as a coach, I do not have the authority, I do not have the power to decide is it a depression or not. So when it comes to this question, what you read up, it is a quite complicated question. As Gabriel said, lots of things included. Definitely from my side, I would advise for the parents to monitor. We would try out some self-monitoring also, but yes, I would involve some professionals as well, even just for a chat to make sure.
Yes, it's like you're saying, better safe than sorry, Chris. Huh?
Yes, and for the parents, because imagine even for parents, how does it feel? When a parent can decide now how to support, you have to see lots of way for a teenager. Teenagers, they live with their parents, so it's not an easy subject either to be a parent for a teenager.
Yes.
Even if it's the best ever relationship. I had parents, they are like best friends with their kids. It's still very hard because they are involved, no?
Absolutely. And I think also as a parent, it's very hard to see your children struggling through something which in a way you are also struggling through, and wanting to be the bigger person and help them. And very often our answers are a bit like, I don't know either, you know, I don't know what to do. I am also unsure and uncertain and anxious. And so I think parents also need a lot of support in this time. I don't know, Gab, maybe you can enlighten us on what your experience has been of parents and kids who are losing their motivation.
I agree a lot with what all of you are saying. Yes, I'm seeing it quite a lot. A lot of teens are losing a lot of motivation right now. So as you said, like we have to see that the circumstances right now are very difficult. So if all you're doing is waking up, staying in your room, doing online schooling, or actually going to school and then back home because all your hobbies are closed down right now, you can't go out. It's very demotivating. So I think it's a very normal feeling. At the same time, I agree with Gabriel and Christina that we have to be careful as well. So we can't just say, oh, it's normal and ignore it. So I think there's a very fine line between understanding that we're all a bit unmotivated right now because there isn't much to do apart from waking up, going to school, going back home. And at the same time, we don't want it to get more out of hand. So yes, we have to be very careful. And I agree with Christina that the parents should know and should be on the alert, even though it's a normal feeling right now.
Gabriel, you wanted to add something? Thanks, Gab.
Basically, that some parents may feel guilty if their children are are suspected to have a mental health condition, and that should not be the case. It doesn't depend on the parents and the way one raises one's child, which will affect whether one has depression or not. There are many factors at play. So if that is an issue which is causing the parents to hesitate from seeking professional support, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all.
Wow, I can imagine that is really a big relief for many parents to hear, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. I'm coming to another question, which is involving the parents. Let me just, okay. It's really hard for me at the moment to be in the same room with my parents. They won't let me meet my friends. They won't let me go out on the weekend, or they're worried about is this stupid virus. I've completely lost my freedom and I'm constantly fighting with everyone in the house. What can I do? Christina, maybe you can start because this is very...
Yes, I'm already on there.
You're like...
Yes. Wow. So in this case, I would tell, I like life examples, and I find that the teens, they like it a lot, especially when I joke about parents, no? So I tell them, you know, it works like this. When daddy comes home and you see that dad and mom has some misunderstanding, so mommy starts up a bit being sharp, and you don't understand why. And if you talk to daddy, daddy says, but I'm not a fortune teller. I cannot see what is in your mind. How can I know what I should be done? And so on. So I tell them, you see, you are like your father. Your parents are not fortune tellers. They don't know what is in your mind if you don't say. If you just slap the door, that's not a bad thing if you are very angry. I mean, anger comes out, but not much. So maybe it is good to find a bit of time to tell them what is bothering, really. I find this time of the year doesn't matter, COVID or not COVID. We are on the edge all the time in May. That's a long month, hot. Kids are tired from the school. Parents are tired. Everybody's tired. And now we just have to keep on this May. June will be better.
We have exams around the corner too.
Everything in June, everything. So yes, that is it. What we always work on, how to tell them what is really bothering them, and when, and not going there like with an army.
So communicate.
Yes, and I have to say this. I forgot before to say mindfulness. With me, who comes coaching mindfulness and meditation, it became a must. First they go against, but then they accept it, and then we have fun about it and they like it. So that keeps a little bit back in the situation as well. When they come very angry and very irritated of the parents, then they remember that, okay, so maybe I don't need to shout out their head, and then they will understand me better. So they can communicate their needs. They need to learn how to communicate their needs, because parents can't just guess.
Yes, absolutely, Chris. I think also this person is talking about something which I've encountered very often. In a way, feeling angry towards the parents for not allowing them to continue the social life that they had before the pandemic. Yes, and it's creating obviously a lot of tension and a lot of difficulty, because the parents are telling me, I want to let them go out, but you know, it's so dangerous, and what if they bring COVID into the house, and my mother is in a home, and this, you know. So it's like parents these days never really know the right thing to do. It's like, if I don't let them go out, they feel low and I'm motivated. If I let them go out, I'm putting their health at risk and putting the family at risk. So I do appreciate that things are very delicate. And maybe Gabriel and Gabby can give us some tips of how to cope with this very delicate situation.
What I was going to add is we've looked at the parents' perspective, and I totally understand. We need to look at as well the teens' perspective, who are all of a sudden stuck inside. So before they had their freedom and they had their free time to go out, to go to school and have their free time and have their independence and then go to hobbies and then go out. And all of a sudden they have no independence and no freedom. So I can totally understand that it must be really difficult. And I can understand that everyone's frustrated and everyone is fighting. So the parents, yes, I understand that they're stuck, but they need to understand that it's very difficult even for the youngsters. What I would suggest maybe is still giving them their free time and their independence in a safe way. So maybe doing it at home, maybe giving them an hour where they're in their room with the door closed to call their friends and they can have a conversation without anyone listening onto them. Or maybe, I don't know, stay in the balcony and another friend is on the pavement, for example, and at least they can have some form of interaction. I think it's very important for the parents to understand that teens need some independence and some time for themselves. So they can do it safely by doing it even at home, or maybe, as I said, one is in the balcony, one is outside, or even if one is on the pavement and the other one's on the opposite side, you know, and give them some time, or maybe drive them somewhere and they can meet a friend with a parent and they're far away from each other. At least the parents would have more control on what their kids are doing. But they need to understand that it's important at that age, as difficult as it may be right now.
Yes, I think sometimes as adults we forget how important the socialization is, because maybe if even we feel it when we can't meet our friends and family, but we're kind of a bit more equipped to kind of understand that, you know, it's going to happen eventually and we'll cope with it. But for teens, it's sort of everything, eh? For you guys, for you young people, it's your friends are your life pretty much. So yes, I think the parents really need to remember this. Gabriel, would you like to add anything?
Yes, just building on what Gabby and Christina have already said. I mean, I agree fully with what they said. The basis for trying to resolve these sort of conflicts at home is basically that both parents and teenagers have to trust each other enough to believe that they're both trying to act in the best judgment possible given the situation, and to empathize, meaning that to understand. So the parent has to understand the teenagers need to socialize at that particular age in life, and one's sensitivity to a lack of socialization, to a change in the usual habits of going to school, going to lectures, and so on. And obviously the teens have to also understand the role and responsibilities of the parents in this case as well. We've met situations where we have teens who live with grandparents. So in that instance, obviously, the grandparent would be even more concerned, given that if there's COVID infection affecting an elderly man or woman, then that could have more serious complications and repercussions than in a younger age group. So it has to be a mutual sense of shared understanding. But there are ways and means of doing it, as Christine and Gabby quite rightly said.
I'm talking to myself, that's all right. I do it a lot. In fact, as you were talking, I was just thinking that recently, and it's not actually just teens, because my son, who is 8 years old, I noticed a pattern by which he was following me around the house, like 24/7, talking in my ear about his games, on and on and on. And obviously, I don't have much to add. I mean, I occasionally play these games with him, but I can't play games all day, obviously. And then it just clicked to me, and I said, he needs his friends. He needs his friends. Poor kid, you know, he's 8 years old. He needs to connect with his friends. So we started, I connected with a few of the other parents. I mean, maybe this is something practical. And as Gabby was doing, as Gabby said, it's easily done. And we're organizing play dates on Zoom. So, you know, they're literally sitting on Zoom, playing their games, talking about what's happening in Minecraft or Roblox, or and they can spend hours, you know, and it's really beautiful. And so simple to organize. So I think if we get creative, there are ways and means we can support our young people to cope with this situation in a easier way. All right. Okay, so we actually just got a live question in now, and I think it's very important that we tackle it. This young person is saying, I'm very, very worried about my friend. She's saying that she's had enough and she wants to die. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell her. And I'm very scared. So I think this is an important question to tackle. Would one of you like to get going on it?
Shall I go for it?
Go, Gab. It's normal for teens to feel like they want to die, Gab.
Yes, I mean, sometimes in teenage years, we all went through it. We go through a lot of changes, both hormonally, both in our bodies, in our environment. So sometimes there are things that we don't understand and we're not sure how we should react to them or whether we should be feeling this way. And we have new situations where with our parents it's different, with our friends it's different, so everything is starting to change. So I can understand that it must be very overwhelming, and plus all that there's the issue of hormones going on. So I can understand that teenage years are very overwhelming. What I would say to someone who is listening to a friend who is going through this, they are teens too. So I don't think they should be carrying all this weight on their shoulders. I think they really need to speak up. Sometimes I know their friends tell them, please don't tell anyone, please don't tell anyone. However, I think the friend needs to safeguard themselves and their friend who is saying this and speak up, because that is the only way they can save them. Obviously not doing it and by snitching, as the youngsters say, and just go behind their backs and speaking up, but tell the friend, listen, I mean, I am really concerned. I really need to speak to someone about this. And maybe this friend can tell her parents or his parents, or maybe if they have a good relationship with the friend's parents, they can tell them, or maybe someone from school, maybe a counselor or a teacher who can help. But I would really suggest that they don't lift something so heavy on their shoulders. It would be difficult for anyone at any age, let alone a teen, to carry something so heavy regarding a friend. So I would highly suggest they would speak up. And what the friend can do is support the other friend with, number one, speaking up, and number two, just listening. Just listening is enough. And then every other thing can be done by professionals.
Yes,
I think very valid what you're saying, Gab. I think it's also important for us to try and understand why people, and especially young people, feel like they want to die. I'm not sure if maybe Gabriel, you want to go into this, you know?
Usually it's a sense of helplessness in the face of the situations which we're facing. And it goes back to what we were saying with regards to what we can control and what we can't control, and knowing the difference. So that could be one of the reasons why this person is feeling in such a way. It could also be lack of support, which obviously makes one even less resilient to these changes, to the adversities in life. And that is where Gabby came in and advised that it's best for the friend or whoever to ask the individual to seek support from parents, from other friends, from the same friend who's been informed of the situation. Active listening is very important. It could also be, apart from being a normal part of life, sometimes we do have these thoughts, it could also be, though, something which comes from mental illness, such as depression or severe anxiety or other conditions. But I think it's best in these situations to first make sure that the individual has the support they need and they trust, because it's important. We cannot always assume that the individual is happy to speak with all his friends or with both his parents or so on. We have to make sure that the person himself or herself is comfortable in speaking about his or her own feelings in a safe way. And then obviously after reaching out, we can assess risk. Obviously professional support in these situations is advised, because not all suicidal thoughts or death wishes or so on have the same level of gravity.
Exactly. Christina, you were going to add something?
I totally agree with Gabby and Gabriel. This is the situation like when we talked about being depressed from my point of view. So where is the line? So a teenager, if I am a teenager and my friend is telling me this, it's quite heavy on me as well. And that's why I agree a lot with Gabby. So another teenager age person cannot carry this big pack. Here I would call out for parents. That is something here very, very important. I know every family is different, every character is different. Parents, schools, adults who works with teenagers, please open and try to communicate over to the teenagers that find the person with whom you are comfortable to talk to if you think that somebody is in danger. They have to be taught and repeated these sentences, because sometimes, we forget, they just want to be good friend and listening, and then it can be very heavy.
I think it's also important to say that many people are afraid to encourage people to talk about these things. I've heard very often, if they talk about it, then it's going to happen, or if they talk about it, it's going to make it worse. When actually, I think as professionals, and if we go back to the research, what we do know is that when people talk about it, it's much more helpful, and it's less dangerous when people talk about it and bring it out into the open. So I think open communication is important, especially with an adult, with someone who can, take charge and look after you in that moment. I think I also want to say that I think it's quite normal for anyone at any point in their life to have these thoughts. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. And very often, I think when we have these thoughts, it doesn't necessarily mean we want to die. I think it can mean we're tired, or we're feeling unloved, or we're feeling that we're not important, or we're feeling like the problems we have right now are never going to end and my life is going to be miserable. And we're tired and we just want out. But I think it's so important to remember that death is permanent, and it's quite a silly solution really, because it's a permanent solution to a very temporary situation. Everything is temporary in life, and when you grow up, you realize that things have momentum and life develops, and this problem that you're dealing with right now, which is making you feel like you want to die, is going to disappear. So permanent solutions don't make sense for temporary situations. All right, I think we have time for one more question, unless you want to add something else. I'm looking at this question, which I think is extremely relevant also. This person is asking about a feeling of panic every time they leave the house. Whenever I think of going out, even to school, I start feeling panicky, and I'm scared that something bad is going to happen. I don't know what's wrong with me. That's it. I don't know what's wrong with me. What do you think, guys?
If I may start, I mean, this condition has become quite more frequent since the start of the pandemic. I think it basically relates to two things. So there's the factor that when we stop doing something consistently, then when we have to resume doing that sort of behavior, it becomes a bit more difficult. So if we spend a lot of time at home, when we eventually have to go out socially or for educational purposes or so on, we will find it a bit harder to readjust to our previous routine. And secondly, there's the issue related to the fear of the illness, of the infection, and the guilt that if I were to go out and I get the infection, maybe I could be a carrier, I'll remain asymptomatic, I'll infect my relatives and so on. So these two are predisposing to this sort of situations. agoraphobia in a way, a fear of going out in open spaces, of leaving house. And we will find in certain situations, as a measure of severity, that some people will end up even fearing going next to the front door of the house, or even fearing leaving the room. And that shows the severity. And obviously, the more restricted one feels, the greater the urgency to seek professional help. I don't know whether Gabby or Christina would like to add on to this.
I think the Gabriels are on the same wavelength, because I was going to say the exact same thing. I have nothing to add. I agree with you 100% that since youngsters are staying more at home, they might find it more difficult then to actually start socializing again, especially if it's with new people. We all find it a bit difficult to interact with new people, let alone if they haven't practiced in a way for a while. And I agree that then there's the factor of the fear of actually going out and getting the virus. So I've also had this experience with youngsters, that this feeling of fear and panic to go out has increased, definitely. So I agree 100%.
I do agree with both again. What I find it good, as I am the practical woman, we did the following. We asked a doctor to come and talk to a teenager who was in this situation, to explain if because there was a fear that she will, what you, Gabriel, said, that she will be infected, and how can you be infected really? Because what they hear, what she told me, what they hear is, and I think it's similar like a question, was that a fear of getting something, or fear of things which is outside, out of the door, because now the safe place is inside. So what we did is the following. We asked a doctor to explain exactly how this virus can go on you if you go out. And even if, so what is your protection? How can you protect yourself? So she came out very well, because she understood that if she just follows what they told them, the authorities, she's totally safe. I think there is one communication here missing towards to teenagers, and even to everyone, I guess, even to me. I learned in that time a lot, that I was going out, but then, okay, 2 meters, not always I know how big is that 2 meter. And what else how this virus, how can I get sick? In the minute you understand properly, then they will start up having some sort of control maybe, and it might help. But yes, I do agree a lot to seek for professional help.
Absolutely. Okay, I think I just want to add to all of this this conversation something about the brain, actually, because we are animals, okay? We are mammals, and there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is designed to protect us from danger, okay? So if we have information that there is danger in our environment, like if we're walking in a jungle and someone says, I think there's a lion loose around us, automatically our amygdala, which is like a fire alarm, starts to send signals to our body, danger, danger, danger. And it starts to produce chemicals, okay? Neurotransmitters, they're called, which support us to fight or run away or freeze or do something, okay, in order to save ourselves and to protect ourselves. And I think a lot of us are going through this right now. Okay, so if we feel like there is a threat in our environment, okay, we're going through a pandemic. So sometimes what we're feeling, this fear and this panic, is actually being caused by our brain, because our brain is trying to cope. It's trying to survive. It's the survival instinct. Even actually when we are wearing a mask like this, we're sending a signal to our brain that there's something we need to be afraid of, okay? And then there's the tendency to produce more of these chemicals. So I think it's also very normal on a biological level that we are going through this. However, everything that we've brought to you today are still, really useful ways that you can cope, whether this is a biological reaction or whether this is a real threat in your environment or a perceived threat in your environment. Just keep trying, guys, keep trying and take everything day by day, like we've all been saying, one step at a time, and we will get through this. I think those are my final 2 cents worth of wisdom. Would the three of you like to just give some last minute tips or pointers or any words you'd like to give to our youngsters and maybe their parents at this time?
What I would like to add is that we're here to support them, and whenever they need help, to look for help. There's no shame to look for help. It's a very difficult time. So if anyone experienced difficulties before, now it must feel twice or 3 times as big as it did before. So take it day by day. I agree with you 100%, but look for support. There's no shame in saying, I need a push,
Or a hug.
or a hug.
Yes.
We're missing our hugs, aren't we?
Yes. I would add, ready, Gabi?
Yes.
I would add to identify the adult person with whom you are comfortable to talk to. It can be a teacher, it can be a parent, doesn't matter who. Just one, find one, and then when it's a time, talk to. Because maybe we have just common troubles sometimes, and you will see we can support each other as well.
Yes.
That would be my message.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Gabriel, final words of wisdom.
Apart from adding to what Gabby and Christina very rightly said, I would just add this sort of metaphor in a way. Hey, when we have a problem, like, I don't know, we fracture our arm, okay? We won't think about whether we need to see a doctor or not. We just go. We just go to hospital or wherever we need to go to get it fixed as much as possible, as quickly as possible. That is not always the case when it comes to issues related to our mental health, because sometimes we say, oh, if I go speak up about it, it shows that I'm weak, or I may get blamed or stigmatized or so on. It shouldn't be the case. And most of the time, our life and the quality which we live, by which we live it, depends too much on the way in which we relate to our environment and to our own self of self, which is very much determined on our mental health. So it's not a question of trying to fit in with your friends all the time or trying to see how best you can wear your clothes or so on. It's more important to actually take care of yourself before trying to take care of how others look at you. And this is very important in this case, especially with teenagers and youngsters and so on. Don't be afraid to seek help. Obviously, do it confidentially. You don't need to tell everyone, because obviously not everyone will understand. But if there is a problem by which you feel that you may need help, just approach us or professionals in your vicinity and get the help you need.
Thank you. And thank you, Gabriel, Gabby, Christina. I really enjoyed this talk. Thank you to all of you who have been tuning in, watching, listening, sending in your questions. I hope you found this useful. And as all my colleagues have been saying, you're not alone. If you need anything, we're here for you. Bye for now. Thank you.